the water's fine, homie, jump into the deep end. Sow it, you will reap it. We talking how to start it, how to grow it, how to keep it. Take a deep breath. You are now rocking with Founder Secrets.
All right, Stefania, welcome to Founder Secrets.
Well, it's so good to be here. Thanks for this opportunity.
No, we're thankful. Stefania is originally Romanian. She's now in Beverly Hills. We were just talking about the consciousness of that area, and she started Blue Heron Foundation, which is an amazing organization we'll talk about today. And helps the world in numerous ways. So really excited to have you on.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. My foundation and the mission of what we do is so aligned with my life's path and my heart, really. So I'm very excited to share with your listeners what it took to get here and why this is so meaningful to me. And I know a lot of people these days are looking to answer the question, what is my life's path, or why am I here, or can my personality be aligned with my soul's yearnings and what I feel I want to manifest in this lifetime. So I think I want to say I'm one of the examples of someone who has done that path, and of course it's still unfolding, but that's how I went about it.
That's setting high bar from the start for yourself there. So tell us about it. Tell us about tell us about that path and what Blue Heron is and the meeting. Anything you can share.
Yeah. So I moved to the United States, came here legally with my family while Romania was still a communist country, so 1983. And we landed in Salt Lake City, Utah with a few $100s and 4 suitcases. Back then, the government would confiscate everything, and we had to exchange a little bit of money on what was called the black market. And that's how we arrived to the United States. Parents didn't really speak English, and my sister and I became their translators for everything. And I was really rattled. I was startled. What I had imagined America to be was not what I found. And we started from zero. It was very humbling. I had all the menial jobs you can imagine, and I worked nonstop since I was 16. But with time, I realized that with education and with ambition, I could manifest something in this country. What I love about America is the notion of meritocracy, which is not something that we had under the communist regime. And also free speech, which I still value greatly and which I did not grow up with. So I felt that as hard as it was, through education and hard work and ambition and a vision, I could accomplish something here, even if we are starting from zero. And so I went to school, and later on I moved to Los Angeles. My undergraduate was in public health. One of the things I focused on a lot was developing, implementing, and evaluating community health programs. And then I did a master's in applied psychology here in Los Angeles, and that also came in very handy for what I would later do. But in my late 20s, I got married, started a family with my husband, and so for a number of years, I was not so focused on a career until about 2002, when 2 things happened. One, I was invited to, it was like an informal salon with some ladies here in Los Angeles, where I found out about a giving group in the Los Angeles area that really inspired me. So their model was, and I still belong to this organization, it's called the Every Child Foundation. They had 210 women, each contributing $5,000. So we were raising a little bit over $1 million every year. And then they would have grant applicants, and we would have a whole screening committee and ultimately take a vote. And we would award a clean $1 million to the winner. And the mission of this organization is to help organizations that have a focus on vulnerable children in the Los Angeles area. But I loved how clean it was, like no events where money went on flowers and overcooked steaks and valets. I like that we were able to spend a clean $1 million and make sure that it's directed directly to a cause. And I was fascinated, and I joined right away. And the other thing that happened the same year is I went to Romania, and in my hometown in Brașov, in Transylvania, I was drawn to visit a local orphanage. It was called the Little Prince Orphanage, where they had about 200 toddlers cared for by not very many people who were trying very hard, but it was so difficult to see so many young children and with not enough attention. And I remember just getting down on my knees to play with them, and a whole bunch came to me and called me mama. And, they had me at that. And I knew in my heart that I was going to do something for them. I had young children at home too, so I just could not imagine that they didn't even have one parent to guide and love them and give them attention every day. And I remember one of the administrators asked me if I had a foundation, and I thought, making note of that word, I wasn't sure what it meant, but I responded very diplomatically, not yet. And I thought, I'm going to go home and research that. So those two things happened, learning about the giving model that was very clean and streamlined, and visiting this orphanage in my hometown. So at the end of that year, I got together with a lawyer, and I applied to become a nonprofit. And the idea was, I'm going to start a giving circle, maybe at $500 a pop minimum, because I thought it's a more obscure cause for Los Angeles, but I thought I can still find people who are interested to help at the $500 level. And luckily, a lot of people joined me, and a lot gave more than 500, a lot more. So that's kind of how it all came together. But ultimately, I would say that it was aligned with me at that time. I was passionate about it, and I felt that I was in the right place at the right time to do it, to start it, to do it. I had the right education.
So that's Blue Heron Foundation. Why'd you name it Blue Heron, by the way?
Yeah, I was thinking of a name that had two words. I thought it would be nice to have a noun and then something describing the noun. And I have this book of Native American spirit animals, and I was looking through the book. So I was like, Blue Heron. Okay, what does it stand for? Self-reliance, self-discovery. And I thought, this is very aligned with where I am in my life right now. So I named it Blue Heron. And later I discovered it's perfect because we, as you will see later, we've over the years, we've worked mainly with vulnerable youth, mainly orphaned and abandoned. And I feel that the Blue Heron, we have helped them spread their wings and even teach them how to fly. So its symbolism is just very meaningful for us. And meanwhile, we were redoing our logo this year. And when I looked up some visuals for the Blue Heron, I found out that there's and they were all established after us, after 2002. There's Blue Heron Architecture, Blue Heron Capital and Venture and Capital, Private Equity.
I actually know the Blue Heron Venture Capital guys. We pitched them for Troy. So
maybe they consider giving us a little grant, but I'm so happy that we have the .org and the .com domain, and that. But that's how it came about.
So many questions, I guess. I almost feel like the story isn't finished, though. I guess So what happened? I guess you had a foundation. You went back, and I guess how did you decide to? Yeah, who to serve, how to raise money for it, and pay people, and
So I decided to have the first salon in Los Angeles. I think we had about 70 people who came, and I told them about my trip to Romania. I told them about my experience in developing, implementing, and evaluating community programs. And I said, look, it's very important to meet people where they are. So I felt that where we could start is hiring additional caregivers to hold and cuddle babies, so that the ratio would be a lot better in that particular orphanage, which had over 200 toddlers. And that was our very first project, about 8 or 10 additional caregivers, which made a huge difference if you start doing the math in terms of time and attention dedicated to each child. And then later we also built, I was always in constant touch with the administration. So we ended up building playgrounds and sports courts at other orphanages because they told us that's where the need was. They were starting to receive various donations, but they still felt that like the kids didn't have anything but a muddy lot to play on when they would go outside. And after that, since I was going to Romania at least once a year, and I was always inquiring where are the greatest needs, I realized that at the age of 18, the young men and women were pushed out of the orphanages, and they had no plan of how to become self-sufficient. They had no plan for an education. There were no programs that would teach them how to become self-reliant. And I knew how important it was for me to go to college, and I realized that a lot of these young men and women had academic potential in spite of incredible emotional hardship and very often, if not always, trauma. And I think this is what I want to focus on now, especially because nobody else wanted to do it. So we developed a program, scholarship and mentorship program for Romanian, and later on we also added Moldovan youth. So that started in 2005. So it's been 18 years, and we've been doing that nonstop since then. So we've been covering the tuition for the young men and women that we would accept in our program. We would also assign them a mentor. For young men, it was a male. For young women, it was female. They are usually mentors from their profession. And what was beautiful, the beautiful thing that happened in the process was that we are also building a community. I realized how much also people who wanted to give wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. And some wanted to do more than just write a check or, clicking some numbers to make a donation. And Blue Heron has been able to offer them this opportunity where they would be in touch with our students as a mentor. And of course, we have a whole outline of some do's and don'ts and some of the best ways to reach and communicate with our students. But that was kind of something I didn't expect, which is beautiful, how much the diaspora Romanian community around the world, especially in the US, and also in Romania, the Romanian community there, how much it came together as part of becoming mentors and just having the joy of seeing where the money goes, being the witness of a young person who had so much going against them, just very often abandoned at birth or on the steps of a hospital, or so many students who have a blank next to mother, father in the birth certificate. We had a couple who the mother just jumped the window at the maternity and left. So they couldn't even have the name of the mother in their birth certificate. So many stories. So they became part of our community. We also offer them courses such as IT, English courses, driver's license courses, all these things that I guess a family would do for their children in order to help launch them into the world. So we paid for that. And we also had, we started about 14 years ago, an annual summer camp. And that has been the highlight for them, for us as a team. A lot of mentors invite themselves. It's a little more complicated to have them be part of a camp, but we've had them visit. But this is an extraordinary time where these young men and women, they don't realize how many other youth like them were out there, so who have gone through similar horrific situations early on in their lives with abuse, abandonment, and to see that they come from all over Romania. And here they are at this camp, and they are in medical school, and they're trying to become engineers and teachers, and they have so much emotional intelligence, and that they haven't given up and become bought into victimhood, that they are trying, and that there's hope. So these camps have been extraordinary for everyone, for the students in our program and for us as a team. And they brought us together. They brought the mentors together to just by hearing about these camps. So this is a program that we've been doing for all these years. We are present with the program in over 25 of Romania's 40 regions, and 13 of Moldova's, I think they have 26 regions. So we have a pretty wide outreach.
Well, how did you, because you said at the beginning, somebody asked you about what's your foundation, what was the name of your foundation, and you wrote that down. How do you go from those kind of early thoughts to now having this tremendous impact years later? When you came back home after that, was there someone you reached out to, or how did you take kind of the first step to get this off the ground and to take those first kind of baby steps?
It's such a good question. All I can say is that I felt that I had a lot of resources. So I thought, okay, I have the education. I know how to develop, implement, and evaluate a program. I had, thankfully, in my case, a husband who was supporting us. And I felt I had a financial and also a social platform. So I thought I can reach out to friends and friends of friends, to some groups in the Romanian community. And then I reached out to a lawyer to help me, with all that. Then I kept asking a lot of questions once we became an official 501c3. I don't know, it took 3 or 4 months. I kept asking a lot of questions of the accountant. I wanted to know. And ultimately, I organized an event at our house with about 70 people. And I said, this is what I'm going to do. This is how much the salaries of these people who are going to hold and cuddle babies are going to be. And also I was in a very fortunate position and made the decision to cover all expenses. So I felt that donors would feel good about investing in something where 100% of their donation went directly to the beneficiaries. And that's kind of how I got it going. And then after that, every year I had to do a salon where I would report what we have accomplished that year, where their money went, and what our intentions were for the following year. About 7 years ago, I started doing the same for our donors in New York. So we have these informal salons which are not fundraisers. They are 2 hours. They last 2 hours. I'm very efficient. I like this whole idea of being streamlined, clean, but very responsible and accountable. So 2 hours, 6:30 to 8:30, an hour of hors d'oeuvres and drinks, and an hour of presenting. And I would make sure that a couple of the students joined us on Skype back then, now on Zoom, and the donors had a chance to hear directly from them their story, how our program and their generosity impacted their lives. And then we would have live, we always had real mentors in the audience who shared their story. They would get up and speak for a few minutes. It's very of the heart, very real. I think the whole notion of building a community is very important. So in a way, I guess I did both things. I did the piece of envisioning this giving model, which eventually, like I said, it had, even now we have about 150 donors a year. They give anywhere from 500 to, tens of thousands of dollars. And we raise about 300,000 a year, but we make it go a really long way, in part because we cover the expenses, and in part because Romania, money goes a long way in Romania and Moldova, and also because of our mentors and so many people who are contributing as volunteers. I mean, some of our mentors are very accomplished people, and they still want to give a few hours of their time every month to be with their students.
Yeah, how did you come up with the mentorship program? Because I guess it sounds cool, but it's a little hard to keep up. I've noticed other mentorship programs have a hard time matching the people or making sure they stay in touch. And I know my mentee had like a journal that he has to fill out every month to say like, I talked to my mentor, yes or no. Like, how did you come up with those accountability sort of things to make sure the program doesn't die off and it keeps going?
Yeah, well, it kind of evolved into that. In the beginning, it was just me writing short emails to every student saying, how are you doing? What's going on? Somebody spoke to me and said, University of Arizona has a great mentorship program. And I was like, what's that? And I studied it a little bit, but we ended up developing our own version of a mentorship program. So the tool we decided to use to facilitate communication between two very different people, somebody who grew up without parents and with a lot of trauma, and some professor on the East Coast, a Romanian American professor. It's like, how do you facilitate that? So we have a journal that we ask our students to write monthly. And there's 4 or 5 questions, basically, what have been the successes this month, what have been the challenges, and then a few questions if they talk to their student, if they receive their monthly stipend, and something about the volunteer work that they are required to do. But this journal, we actually gather all the journals at the end of their college career, and we put it in a book and we give it to them. So in a way, they have an account of their journey during their college years. And it's just amazing how much they evolve during that time. But the journal is a first step for them to delve into the inner landscape, so to think about, what did I feel this month? How did that conversation make me feel? Why didn't I know how to manage my time? Why am I procrastinating? Just whatever they are dealing with. It also gives the mentor an opportunity to either cheerlead them along the way if they've had some accomplishments. And we always tell them they don't have to be, winning the Nobel Prize. It can be just baby steps that are in a positive direction. But also the areas where they have challenges, especially if they repeat, the mentor as a professional with a lot of professional experience and life experience, they can say, look, I used to have the same issue, or I've gone through that, or this is how I deal with it, help them develop a way of keeping track of their time or prioritizing certain things in their lives. Or we have all sorts of situations, like sometimes relatives come out of the woodwork when they hear that the students are starting to do well, and they have expectations of how they should be helped, even though the students haven't even yet graduated. And even telling them, like, first you have to take care of yourself, just like you put a mask on first on a flight if something happens as a parent, and then the child, you have to prioritize yourself. So just having a mentor and having also a director of the mentorship program who's a very accomplished psychotherapist together we set the tone of how to deal with the situations that come up during their college experience. The whole idea is for them to become successful, not only professionally, but I think emotionally, to develop that emotional intelligence. And we think that it happens also because of the support of the team and the mentors.
Can you elaborate on how someone can keep, or how someone can keep such a positive mindset? You mentioned that they don't feel like victims, or kind of this emphasis on not victimhood, and maybe their mother jumped out of a window when they were born. If I was told these things about my mother, I think I would have a very hard time seeing the world in a positive light, especially, if I didn't get a lot of opportunities, and if people in other places seem like they're just given things, and maybe I would feel very sad or frustrated about that. How is it that you choose kids who have a positive outlook, and you say, okay, if you have a positive outlook, you're gonna be part of our group, and you're part of this culture? Or do you get some kids who do talk about being a victim, and you change their mindset? How does that mindset kind of evolve as a culture inside the organization?
Well, I think most people and most youth that we interview are somewhere on a continuum in terms of victimhood and where they see themselves. But what I've learned from a lot of experience is that first of all, we've always had limited funding, so we couldn't award the scholarship to every single student who applied. But we tried to find individuals who would meet us halfway, because we've had some experiences early on where I'm not sure they wanted it as much as we wanted it for them. And I realized that they're not ready. So we're trying to find youth who are willing who take some responsibility. They're at the place in their development where they feel maybe I need to do my part and see if I get some results. We really look for young men and women who are willing to meet us halfway. Like we say, we are willing to raise money. We're willing to go through the effort of everything it takes to develop this program, to bring this funding to you, to fight for you, to help you fight for yourself. But we need you to meet us halfway. So that's very important. And then once they meet us halfway, yeah, of course and we all have days when we feel like that too. But I think we really believe in the notion that to use everything for our growth and upliftment. I mean, that's my view in life. I think the moment I get away from that, I get stuck. And then it's a question, well, how long do I want to stay in that place for? Because ultimately I won't move forward unless I shift back into using everything to my growth and upliftment, no matter how disempowering or tragic it seems. And I think the team shares that as a worldview, and it's kind of, it trickles down to our students too. And they also see each other, like during get-togethers and camp, they see those who model these qualities. And there's nothing more powerful than to have somebody like you, somebody who has been abandoned, has been through trauma. He chooses not to be a victim, and he chooses to say, oh, I think I'm stronger because I've had this very dramatic life trajectory. I'm not a victim, and my past is not my future. And they're like, what? It's really nice to have those role models within their community of students.
I'm curious, on that nature, like, what are the traits that you value most? I guess I'm curious in yourself, but also in the most successful students that you've seen. Yeah, what are some of those skills or traits that maybe you look for, and you've seen are more successful than others?
Well, sometimes I think that we are here to teach what we came here to learn. And so what I learned is just humility, that if nothing was beneath me, nothing is above me either, that I can reach for the star. Hard work, really wanting it, ambition, and then this alignment of our soul line, so to speak, with our physical material world. When we look at what kind of qualities, I think they're very similar. I'm thinking, because I know she's on the East Coast, we have one student who became a neurologist, and I think she works in Philadelphia. She's one of the few who actually came to America. She's doing her residency here, and nobody worked harder than this student. I mean, everybody works pretty hard in our program, but it's beyond anything I have witnessed in my life. The degree of wanting to surpass her condition, to use her incredible intellect to transform a dream and her abilities into something very tangible. So I think it's drive, I think it's ambition, and I think it's humility. And I also think it's not expecting others to do it for you. Like, you want to meet people who inspire you, role models, mentors, somebody who teaches you how to fish but doesn't hand you the fish. These are the qualities that, and maybe in the beginning I didn't even have a word for them, but as I look back of 20 years almost of work with these young men and women, these are the qualities that made them successful ultimately. And they are the qualities I've tried to instill in my own sons. We have 2 sons. That's what I've seen in terms of giving results. And we've had over 450 graduates in our program. And like I said, they were in many different fields. And some stories that are just another anecdote. This young man who was tied to the crib the first few years of his life. I mean, those horrible stories that maybe you're too young to remember, but I was in my 20s when the communist regime fell. And there were all these horrific images on CNN and various news channels with children in Romania tied to the crib in just horrific conditions. To think that was his beginning and that he's now an internist in Romania kind of defeats the odds. It's just mind-boggling, some of the stories. But again, he wanted it so much. He wanted to make it happen so much. And also this particular young man I'm thinking of had an extraordinary mentor who was so close to him, who would buy the medical books he needed. He had no money for that, and help him study for his residency, and on and on. I think the mentors too are just by who they are as people, their moral compass, how vertical they are, their own ambition and determination and ability to model hard work through osmosis. I think our students get it, that it's kind of what it takes to accomplish your goals and to be successful.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, for the work you do. And as we wrap up here, one last question is, what advice would you have for someone that's looking to start up? Maybe they're like you when you were first writing down what a foundation is, and they're looking to start a foundation. And I know many folks kind of like, I'll do it someday. I'm busy now. I don't have enough money now, right? Let me save more so I can take care of myself. And like you said, put your mask on first. So then I guess, what advice do you have for that person that's kind of, looking to start, wants to help, but just doesn't know when and how?
Yeah, I'm not a person who puts pressure on everybody that you have to give and right away. I would say give from the overflow, because I do believe it's very important that we first take care of ourselves emotionally, financially, meaning that we have the minimum necessary. Give from the overflow. The second thing would be make sure it's aligned with something that speaks to your heart. There isn't a cause that's higher than the other. I've had a childhood where, even though I was very much loved, I was ping-ponged between grandparents' houses a lot. And I think that not having that continuity and consistency and unconditional love and stability really rattled me. And I worked a lot on that. I feel I'm very sensitized to people who have gone through that. And also, I guess, having had children, I was just very endeared to those causes. But I think our hearts have to be aligned, whether it's animal welfare, the environment, etc. You have to have a real calling and to feel that it's giving back to you also, to your well-being. It's filling your cup, because what I've done has filled my cup. And I think that's how it should be. It shouldn't be out of obligation or guilt or a mental exercise. It should really come from the heart when it's the right time.
You're an inspiration, and love your words. The give from the overflow.
Give from the overflow. I wrote that down. I'm going to put that as I love that.
Well, thank you, Stefania, so much for coming on our pod today.
Where can people find more information and maybe give some money or get involved?
www.blueheronfoundation.org. And we've done a lot of work for the Ukrainian refugees during the crisis, including a very complex cancer care program. Yeah, that was it was a very intense year for last year, because we were strategically positioned in those two countries that were dealing with many, many tens of thousands of refugees. So what I'm trying to say, we also pivot as needed. And I am hoping to do more locally. I feel there is a lot of loneliness in Los Angeles, and I am thinking of ways of pulling the community together. And I pride myself in being very creative with developing programs. So I'm thinking, but for now, the main focus of our efforts remains the college scholarships for Romanian and Moldovan orphaned and abandoned youth. Yeah, people can find us at blueheronfoundation.org. And again, 100% of the donation will go directly to our youth. And it takes about $1,200 a year to support one youth through college. So I think that's a bargain. Tuition and monthly stipend included. As the founder, I cover the rest, salaries and so on. So very grateful for those who want to give.
Incredible return on investment, $1,200 a year. You get to go to college. Wow.
All right. Thank you so much, Stefania. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for rocking with the homies. Taylor, Trusty, and Flavio. Seize the day, own it. Until next time, hold it down, hold it down. Hey.